Hey, what's the crack? And welcome to my video where I will be showing you how I got the platinum trophy for Days Gone. And this is without a doubt one of the games I would definitely recommend you play. Not even for the platinum, just to play. So I'll start off this game with introducing our main character and probably the coolest name for a character, Deacon St. John. And he is with one of his best friends, a man named Boozer. The first trophy I got was called Finders Keepers. And how I unlocked this trophy was by getting my first collectible, which was this piece of shit's hat. And I know what you're all thinking, this just looks like your normal average skate park, but these would be the main antagonists of this game, and they're called freaks. Just a flesh wound was the next trophy that I managed to unlock. And how you get this trophy is right now past the freakers on your bike from a place called Crazy Willie's. The sentences I have to say are just nuts. There's also places called camps in this world. They don't do s'mores, but they do give you credits for freaker ears. You can also get credits for selling other things, which leads to my next trophy, Kitchen Courier. And how you acquire this trophy is by selling either an animal meat or plant to a camp. I sold a plant. Just like in real life, if you go to abandoned places, you can always find the best stuff to inject into yourself, which leads me into my next trophy called Better Living Through Chemistry. And how I got this trophy is by upgrading my stamina for the first time. But you have two other choices, you have health and focus. Picking any of the three will get you the trophy. The place I was just in is owned by a company called Nero, and it's these scary boys here. And after seeing these Nero boys, we get introduced to an old friend of ours called O'Brien. But this also leads into the next trophy I managed to get, and it was called The Ends and the Means. And how you unlock this trophy is by spying on Nero and finding out what happened to them all. To be honest, they probably all just left because of this one camp leader called Tucker. And Tucker is this sweet looking innocent woman, but she is anything but. And I decided to earn my next trophy with her called Special Delivery. And how you get this trophy is by making a choice of either giving what you have to Tucker or Copeland. But I was already at a camp, so I decided to give it to Tucker. It's not all doom and gloom throughout this game. You do get some nice flashbacks of Deacon and his wife. And Deacon doesn't only love just his wife, he also loves his bike. Which brings me to my next trophy, First Time Buyer. And how you get this trophy is by upgrading your bike for the very first time, which you can do in any of the camps. And I'm also curious, I want to know, would a crossover between The Last of Us and this game be good or no? I personally think it would. And the next trophy that I managed to unlock was called DIY Oregonian. And how I unlocked this trophy is throughout the game you can craft objects, and if you craft 50 of them you get this trophy. And I got this trophy while fighting a group called the Rippers. And with them introduced, this brings me to my next trophy called Lost and Found. And how I unlocked this trophy is by heading south with Boozer, because the Rippers don't travel down that far and they're annoying the two boys. And we get to discover a new camp run by a man named Iron Mike. And then we get to meet one of the biggest pieces of shit in this video game ever named Schizo. The next trophy that I got on the list was called Brothers in Arms. And how you get this trophy is just by going around and checking on Boozer and see how he's doing. He tells us that he wants to take a more hands-on approach to being in the camp. I think Boozer only decided to stay at the camp because he found out who I fought, and it's your average roid user. After fighting him, I decided it was time for an upgrade to the bike, and I got another trophy called Farewell Original. And how I unlock this trophy is by getting an upgrade for performance, visual, and paint. And if you're wondering where I'm getting these credit from, it ties into this next trophy called Survival Ain't Living. And how I got this trophy is by rescuing 10 people from freakers and then sending them to a camp, and which camp you pick depends on how much credits you get. Boozer isn't feeling too well mentally, so we decide to get the best thing we can find, a brand new puppy. We tried to bring back an even bigger dog, but it didn't work out. He just kept rolling. And then we were on to our next trophy, and it was called Taking Back Your Name. And how you unlock this trophy is by escaping a camp where you were captured by an old friend. And speaking of old friends, after meeting up with O'Brien, we discovered that our wife is still alive, which leads to the next trophy that I got called Riding Nomad. And how I acquired this trophy is by getting the help of Iron Mike to show me where all the shortcuts are to go and help find my wife. And then in this new area we ended up finding a camp with a new man named Curry, and he brings us to another camp which lets us get our trophy called Hold On Tight. And how you get this trophy is by going to the new camp and meeting the Colonel himself, an absolute whack job of a soldier. We also find out this is where our wife is, and when I tell you this Colonel loves the sound of his own voice, he'd probably sit in a chair in an empty room just to listen to himself sing. But anyways, on to our next trophy, which was called It's Getting Cold Outside. And how I acquired this trophy is by going back to my wife's old workplace, recovering some things so she can continue researching. While off out doing more missions, I got my next trophy, and it was called You've Got Red on You. And how I acquired this trophy is by looting 541 corpses. My Christ, that's so much. While still out doing missions, I got another trophy called The Art of Bike Repair. And how you get this trophy is by applying 100 scrap to your bike, because your bike can take damage from literally anything out there. The next trophy that I managed to acquire was called Marauder Camp Hunter. And how I acquired this trophy is by going around to different camps and taking everyone out there. You can get these through side missions. It's not all kill and murder in this game. Sometimes we capture nudes and torture them. Oh jeez, that's what I was even Moving swiftly on, the next trophy I managed to get was called One Down. And how I got this trophy is by taking down one of the biggest hordes in this game. And this is the highlight of this game, is all the massive hordes in it. They're so much fun to take on. This just looks like a normal Irish Friday night when lads are going for pints. And speaking of hordes, the next trophy that I managed to get was called Lend Me Your Ears. And how you acquire this trophy is by collecting 989 freaker ears. It's kind of funny too where I got this trophy, because I was on a mission to get headphones, and after picking up all them freaker ears, I managed to get this next trophy called Make It Rain. And how I got this trophy was by spending 20,000 credits in one camp. And there's lots of ways you can spend credits in camps, like upgrading your bike, or just even filling it up and repairing it, or by buying a heap of weapons, grenades and medipacks. I like the big massive guns. They're absolutely unreal for taking on hordes. We actually run into that piece of shit Schizo one more time, and he outs us for being a traitor. He also tells all the new nut jobs about his old camp, Lost Lake, where Iron Mike is. So we decide to make our way back and give them a heads up. Oreo Invictus was the next trophy that I managed to acquire. And you get this for not only going back to Iron Mike's to help him out, but also coming up with a harebrained plan to go after the Colonel. And since we're talking about Iron Mike's camp, this brings me on to my next trophy called Best Friends Forever. And how I unlock this trophy is by reaching best friend status with one of the camps, which means getting to level 3, and that just happened to be Iron Mike's. And how you build up rapport with them is by taking out marauders or helping people and sending them to their camp. Remember when I said harebrained plan? Well, that harebrained plan involved taking on the biggest horde in the game, and I did not prepare well. So before taking on the rest, and what I decided to do is get my next trophies here, and the first one was Don't Stop Me Now, which you get for just spending your first upgrade point on anything. And the next trophy I got was called I'm Out of Control, which is very similar to the first one, where you just have to spend 15 of your upgrade points on anything. And then I got the trophy There's No Stopping Me Now, which you get for spending double the points from the last trophy, which would be 30. And to be honest, I wish I did this a lot sooner. It made it so much easier. And then with the horde taken care of, we got to execute our plan, and I'm inside the base to take down everyone, but I ran out of ammo. And this is where I unlocked my next trophy called I've Been Waiting for This. And how I unlocked this trophy is by taking out all of Schizo's men and then taking out the man himself, the piece of shit, Schizo. And did anybody really realize that Lewis Capaldi does the end song for this game? And speaking of the end, this brings me on to my next trophy called Days Gone. And how I acquired this trophy is just by completing the story of Days Gone and riding out of the cave with Deacon's woman. But let me tell you, the fun doesn't stop there, because the next trophy I managed to get called This Is a Knife. And how I got this trophy is by taking on a rager, which is like a freaker bear, so it's very strong. And the next trophy I managed to get a hold of was called Welcome to the Party, Pal. And you get this for clearing out all the ambush camps, infestation nests, and the Nero checkpoints. And speaking of infestation, this brings me on to my next trophy, and it was called Infestation Exterminator. And I'm fairly sure it's obvious how I got this trophy, but I got it by clearing out all the infestation nests, and this includes them damned crows. The next trophy I got didn't include any crows, thank Christ, and it was called The Ghost of Farewell. And how I got this trophy is by getting 100 stealth kills, which you can do just by sneaking up behind someone, or just even using a crossbow, which leads me to my next trophy called Variety is the Spice of Life. And how I got this trophy is by using 5 different types of bolts in the crossbow. The next trophy I managed to acquire was called Ambush Camp Hunter. And how you get this trophy is by going to ambush camps, taking them all out, and then go finding their bunker where they have maps. And speaking of finding things, this leads to the next trophy I managed to get called World's End. And how I got this trophy is just by completing the World's End storyline, which is finding all the Nero checkpoints throughout the map. And speaking of Nero, this leads on to another trophy called Performance Enhanced. And how you get this trophy is by upgrading either your health, stamina, or focus. I chose stamina because Deacon has the lung capacity of a man that smokes 20 packs a day, but he can still fight. So this leads me to my next trophy called All Reliable. And how you get this trophy is by making a weapon of your own design and then killing 200 people with it. And as I was trying to get this trophy, something really weird happened here where I couldn't target these two lads and they didn't even acknowledge I existed. It reminds me of my family. The next trophy that I managed to wrangle was called Wannabe Fortune Hunter. And how you get this trophy is by finding 50% of all the collectibles in the game, which can include landmarks such as this one, photos that you can find randomly around the map, like this is one of Boozer and someone, or by finally shutting up the leader of the Rippers and his absolutely batshit insane theories. And this also leads on to my next trophy called The Broken Road Show. And how I got this trophy is by getting 75% of all the collectibles, which is some of the stuff I mentioned before and more things. And the next trophy that I managed to secure was was called Best Friends Forever for Life. And how you get this trophy is by making best friends with 3 camps throughout the whole game. And the way I did this for the last camp, I had to fight this entire horde. And then I was on to probably the most important part of this game, bringing a chew toy to Boozer's brand new dog. But on to the less important stuff now, but not less important is the next trophy I got, which was called Mr. Fahrenheit. And how you get this trophy is just like I mentioned before, spending 45 of your upgrade points. This is the point where you absolutely maxed out everything. On to the next trophy that I managed to get, and it was called Go Kick Rocks. And you get this for going around the map and knocking down 12 of the Antichrist Karens. And doing this just gave me PTSD flashbacks from when I was doing the Karens in AC Valhalla. And the next 2 trophies I got were including the bike, and one of them was called Burnout Apocalypse. And how you get this trophy is by using your NOS at the same time as drifting for 5 seconds consecutively. And if you're wondering why I'm in the pool, it's because I tried everywhere else and it's the only place that worked. It's near Tucker's camp. And I did try to finish this game off in the pool, but with all the people interrupting me, I just couldn't. So on to the last trophy before the platinum, and I think it's a fairly fitting one, and it's called Farewell Drift. And how you acquire this trophy is by drifting for a total of 10 minutes throughout the game. And with that got then, this grants me the platinum trophy 1%er. And this was definitely one of my favorite games to platinum. I hope I inspired you to at least play the game, and I also hope to see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.